Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. We're using this channel to show design of custom Magic the Gathering cards, and today our episode is about the color black and how black works within the color pie. So black wants power. Black is all about promising you power and kind of taking away things from you, like costing you life or creatures or cards in your hand. Black does anything it can to achieve power. And since black doesn't have any morals, it's black is amoral, so it'll do anything in power to get more power. So black uses things like death and the undead and fear and pain and torture, disease, just all sorts of fun, lovely things to achieve its goals. So let's start by showing you guys some examples of black in the color pie. So this card is a tutor, and black has always gotten unrestricted tutor effects or tutor for anything effects. So this is paying X life and then switching your library for a card with a convert mana cost of X.
And that's a key factor there. We talk about that black, every color has the ability to tutor. But it's in black. Black is the only color that lets you tutor for literally anything. You know, you need a land, go get a land. You need a sorcery instant, go get it. And the other cool thing about the black tutors is because it gets anything. This is where people screw up their design. When it comes to other tutors, in every color except for black, you have to show what it is that you tutor for. Because remember, the deck, your library, and your hand are unknown areas. So, in order to put something from one zone to the next zone, you have to prove that the thing that you're doing is actually legal. So, I will admit, like, it's a thing that I had to learn when I was first learning to play. That, like, if it said tutor a library for a sorcery and put it in your hand, you actually had to show it to your opponent, because otherwise you could just put anything in your hand, right? Like, I could just say I got a sorcery, right? So, this is one of these things where you, because it's changing zones, you actually have to prove what it is that's going from zone to zone is what it says it is. But black gets around all that. That just says, hey, just grab a card, doesn't matter what it is, and put it in your hand. You don't have to show me what it is. Which is also the downside is when I'm teaching kids how to play Magic. When they do a black tutor, I keep having to remind them, don't show me what it is. I don't want to know what it is. Because I have a lot of times they're like, oh, well, I'll tutor for this zombie. It's like, oh, no, you don't have to do that. You don't have to tell me what it is. Because black says do whatever you want.
It says I do.
Yeah. It's, we always
unless
joke.
the card says that you.
Yeah, we always joke the famous line from the professor in our thing there. Where we say, reading the card explains the card. So if you would just read the card, it would tell you what to do. Anyway, go ahead.
But yeah, read Chains of Monopolies a few times and tell me how that works.
No, I mean, aside from that, now of course we do know that as has been pointed out now that while reading the card explains the card usually holds true, that is no longer the case for companion. Reading the card will not explain the card.
Right.
So.
Right, because no current printed card with a companion has the actual reflected rules text. Oh.
Yeah, the correct rules text. I mean, that's now in the defensive companion. That's a lot of old cards. Chains of Mephistopheles, as an example, does not do what the card says. All right. If you have an original copy of Tackle Maggot, like, it doesn't do anything. Like, you might as well just have the card because it doesn't do what it says it does. It literally, like, the wording on the card is nothing what the Oracle text. They are not similar at all. For the most part, reading the card explains the card. And when you're designing a card, you should keep that in mind. That everything the player needs to know about how to use this card should be on the card. And when we look at, like, people who post stuff on the forum, that's often where the biggest mistake is that if you don't like reading your card, I don't immediately understand what I'm supposed to do with this. Like there was one actually posted today that I read it 3 times. I couldn't even tell you what, but I read it like 3 times, and I'm like, all right, I'm done reading this because I can't figure it out. Like I can't even give you advice.
My brain hurts.
I can't give you any advice because I don't know what the card's supposed to be doing. So, but anyway, go ahead and continue.
Okay, so the reason I chose pay X life and search for mana cost of X is kind of Black's way of controlling what you can search for. So I thought of mana cost X or less, but this is kind of saying, okay, you need to know exactly what you're going to be looking for in your deck. So you can't search for X or less. It has to be exactly X. So this is kind of a twist on a tutor effect, if you will. All right, next one up. This one is all about kind of what example would this be? What do you think? Would this be? I'd say this would be reduction.
Yeah.
Reduction in power toughness is always something that's going to be wearing black. Because you're getting any sort of -X, -1, any sort of minus effect is black's reduction. So -X until end of turn where the X is that creature's power. And I just saw this image and I was like, yeah, that's black. Atrophy.
And we talked about this last week. It's the difference between blue and black when it comes to that, because blue also has -X on the front end, but what blue does not get is -X on the back end. So, yeah, this is where that distinction is, because only black gets that -X on the back end. So this is where that distinction is. So to carry over from last week, there's the difference between the two.
Exactly. All right, so this is about power. This card is really a trading power for your life. So the source would deal as you do lose life, you may draw a card. And there's so many different sources that can lose you life. Damage causes loss of life. Okay. I'll find a way to deal myself damage to draw cards. Anything for that power aspect is black. I'm signing this contract that says, I'm willing to deal myself damage to gain power. Here's a flavorful one I came up with for creature destruction. So destroy any creature an opponent controls. Its controller creates a treasure token. It's like, okay, I'm gonna kill your creature. It's definitely a discount on murder, but your opponent gets a treasure in return. It's like, hey, I'm gonna pay you off for getting rid of your guy. Kind of a little bit of a blue twist, because blue likes to replace creatures it destroys or exiles, but I think this fits black just fine. Black uses darkness. Black likes the cover of darkness to do its miscreant things and its deviant things. So I made this creatures you control have Skulk, and then you can shrink a creature as well. It's okay. You have a creature that's bigger than mine, or I have a creature that's bigger than yours. I can shrink my own creature. Depression, black. There's a lot of cards in black about depression. So this one is target player loses 3 life, then morbid and depression, like that. Like all this just kind of came together. Like, depression. I don't think there's a card that does that. What should it have? Morbid, of course. So if a creature died this turn, instead that player loses life equal number of creature cards in their graveyard. So it's like, okay, that will make the spell better. Creatures die, and they have a graveyard full of creatures. This one's a kind of favorite of mine. Black is all about the undead, making zombies. So this one was exile all creature cards from target player's graveyard, and you make it 2/2 zombie for each creature card exile that way. So it's like, alright, I'm going to use your undead to make undead. Use your dead to make undead, basically. Next one up, this one is another card about pain, and reduction as well. -2/-2 in double turn. You paid Madness. It's -4/-4 because it is March Madness. And the creature is one card with Madness. I love these style of cards where it's like, okay, like Tomb Hex. Gets -2/-2, and then if you do the extra thing, there's a rider to it. This one, this demon, this is a custom mechanic I created. It's pretty similar to Convoke, but you can sacrifice your creatures to pay for the cost, and then his second ability kind of ties into that ability of like sacrificing your creatures to pay for his cost. Beginning of your end step, you draw a card and lose 1 life for each creature that died this turn. So it's like, okay, I'm going to sacrifice a few creatures to play this card for cheap, and then I'm going to reap the rewards. Torture. Torture is another aspect of black, and this one I made kind of to reflect what the mirror are all about. So you're an enchanting creature. Beginning of your upkeep, beginning of each upkeep, it gets a distress counter, and then when the enchanted creature has distress counters on equal to its toughness, you remove the distress counters, and then they reveal their hand, and you choose any non-land card, and they discard it. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna influence you to give me information, and I'm gonna take that information away from you.
I like that one.
And in that sense, what? Yeah. Entropy. Entropy is another thing about black. Losing momentum, slowly decaying. Players can't get counters. No more poison counters, no more experience counters, no more energy counters. And then begin your upkeep with entropy's in your graveyard, and you control a song. You can remove a counter from anything.
Now we know that that's actually a white ability. Or a green ability,
yeah.
depending on what set we're in. We're either white or green.
Yeah, I made this a while ago. I still think this is still kind of black. It's the black likes to feed off of things, like Hex Parasite. Fear. Black likes to spread fear. So, and funny enough, black doesn't get fear anymore, nor does it get intimidate anymore. It just gets menace.
Yeah.
So tap 2 into clerics, and your creatures get menace. Some more zombie support. Hey, I'm a zombie. I give zombies +1/+1 and menace. I can put up a zombie to have the player lose life to a number of zombie creature cards in my graveyard. This one was kind of fun. It's like, all right, hey, I'm gonna curse you, and you're gonna make zombies for me. Meaning, if enchanted players upkeep, each of that player's opponents creates a 2/2 black zombie creature token. It's like every turn, you're feeding your opponent's zombies for them to attack you with. Vermin. Black likes rats and vermin and pestilence and.
Yep, I'm gonna have a card like that when we get over to my cards.
So pretty simple. When it attacks, each player loses 1 life. Kind of a little Carnophage throwback here, a little Maggot Carrier throwback. So for, hey, I die. You lose 3 life and you draw 3 cards. Of course, poison counters. Can't have black without poison counters, especially, because Rexia. So when this guy dies, target player gets poison counters equal to its power. This one, of course, I had to make this one just for fun.
Oh, you'll get to see one of those in mine too.
Yeah. I think that's pretty good.
When it comes to designing cards, unlike Kevin there, I do a lot of like joke cards. Like I use magic really to express my personality or how I'm feeling about something at the time. So this is a throwback to as you, I for this week, I decided to change stuff so you guys can understand, like, where I was when I made this, and I didn't go back all the way. I stopped at, I think, 2012. I think that's, oh, no, 2011 is the earliest one I have here. But I've been designing cards much longer than that. But I stopped at 2000. I'm like, no one wants to see my cards from like 2002. Like, those are bad cards. So it was when I first started playing Magic. So it's like, you probably don't need to know that. But yeah. So like, Appease the Public is one where it's just, yeah. This is literally a card that you could see getting printed. And in fact, actually, I think they did print one just like this. Where you vote for a creature that you don't like, and any creature that has the highest votes or the tied for those votes just disappears. Black is the color of making people sacrifice. You won't see that in the other colors. So yeah, like everyone else has destroy, but black has sacrifice. So with the exception of green, because now green has sacrifice too, because why not? So because green, it's funny. I know we made this joke in previous episodes, but it's like, back in the day, the running meme for black was that, like, black was overpowered, and the excuse was always because black can do anything. Black can do anything they want so long as there's a drawback. And like now it seems like the running meme is green can do anything, and there's no drawback. Like, because we do know that in the most previous recent set, green now has the ability to make people sacrifice stuff, which is, I don't understand why green is getting that, but whatever. So yes, this is just a straight up will of the council from the first conspiracy. There we go. Anyway, like this one here, this was me just goofing around with how much nonsense I could put on one text to make this thing really annoying. This thing enters the battlefield, put cards on top of your library equal to your life total. So obviously you want to be dying before you cast this thing. If you actually cast it on turn 2, you're probably going to kill yourself. In a standard game. Obviously in Commander, this doesn't really matter. You can go ahead and put 40 cards from the top of your deck into your graveyard. So you're not going to matter. But his power and toughness is equal to your graveyard, which is pretty slick. But the drawback here for having a 2-drop is that you have every upkeep you're going to lose 5 life. So you're not going to last very long. If you're playing this, which I think, as we talked about before, is black is famous for these overpowered cards that have these massive drawbacks. And I love just pushing the envelope, just how far can we push this drawback before it becomes unplayable. And I know a lot of people would look at this and go like, this is unplayable. But I look at this and go like, this would be hilariously fun to play. You really are racing yourself at this point because it's flying in indestructible. So your opponent really isn't going to have a lot of answers to this. But the question is, can you kill your opponents before you kill yourself? So at 5 life a turn.
This seems like a Death Shadow type of card. Like it looks bad, but it looks good enough to play.
Yeah, like I will tell you, Death Shadow was one of those ones that, like, when they first previewed it, people were like, "This is the worst card I've ever seen." Like, what a terrible, terrible card. Mm-hmm. And now Death Shadow is like tier 1 in modern. It's because it's about learning how to play the card. Like, if you know how to play with the card, you can do amazing things with it. So I thought, like, this one, I'm like, this would be a ton of fun to play, just to see if you could survive it. If I really wanted to make this really really make you race about this, I could change this to say at the beginning of your end step, you lose 5 life. So literally the turn you play this, you're already losing 5 life. And more than half of your deck. So, so it's like this really would be a crazy card. So this really is the only thing keeping this card balanced right there, is that it's on your upkeep. So, but anyway, so my next one is Death Clown. I am a huge fan of playing with magic names. If you can find a way to, because we all have these cards that within our play groups we all mispronounce just for fun. then there are classic cards. You know, even going back to like Deep Analysis, that people just refer to it as Deep Anal. You know, these are things that like playing with names. Like this is what back when the unsets were still about having fun. Um,
Right.
this would have fit into an unset because it's just making fun of a card that already exists. And then this card, I just made it fun in the fact that it is a creature, and it makes you sacrifice creatures. So you have to be careful how you play this because you need one more creature than the level of X that you're paying, because otherwise this comes into play and kills itself. So, yeah, I think it's a lot of fun to play, but it'd be very hard to play. Here's my own virus card. Mine is Ebola. So, and I use this here. That's an actual quote there from CNN. Back when we had 2 Ebola cases here in America, they were already announcing that like they're saying that within the next couple of days we're going to have 1,000 Ebola cases here in America. And of course, as some of you may know, has it played out in history, we only had 3 ever. So that was, this is it was just a joke card.
It's the media blowing things out of proportion, as always.
Yeah. This one was just a fun little one. I thought would be. I was playing with the idea of wouldn't it be hilarious if there was a planeswalker that was a zombie, and zombies are supposed to be these mindless creatures. So it's a mindless creature that just travels the multiverse because it doesn't know that it's a planeswalker. So it's just a zombie, So, and I just took 3 of my favorite zombie abilities and put them all on one planeswalker. You'll see a lot of my cards do follow that design where I'm like, well, what if I took this card and mashed it with this card and see like how broken we could make one card, This one here, I made this for one of our card contests back in 2014, saying that like people don't like Mind Twist because it's been established that Mind Twist is a little too strong. X and a black, they have to discard X cards at random. There's a reason why it's not getting reprinted. The closest thing we've had to it was X black, and they pick what they discard. Which I said, like, that's not very good. And I said this one here, to make it a little bit more balanced, it's bringing
Mind Shatter.
Yeah. Well, this is actually better than Mind Shatter because this is discards at random.
Because it's each.
Yeah, it's each opponent. And the other reason I was saying that is I said, was that?
Mind Shatter is at random.
Oh, is it? Okay. So yeah, this hits each opponent because, and the reason I did this because I said it in Commander, discard is a worthless ability because targeting one person doesn't help you. So as being able to hit all of your opponents at once would really, really help. So I hope we get to see discard. I mean, they've made mill a legitimate strategy in Commander by saying each opponent mills. I would love to see discard come back in that way too. That like, hey, we can make discard a viable strategy. I mean, yes, Nekosar does exist, but still, it really, the cards you have to play to make Nekosar work are cards that they just work because of his ability. Yeah, playing Wheel of Fortune works with Nekosar because Wheel of Fortune is red and it says each player, but there isn't a black that also says each player, So that was my point there. This is just a grizzly bear, Scape Zombies. I just made this one because I love this song. If you have not heard this song, go look it up. It's hilarious. So that's why that one's there. That was the year it was, 2014. This one caused a lot of problems on the custom cardboard. I remember talking about this on the Facebook group, saying that like people really did not like this card. I still love it. I think it's great. I just, like, as you can see down here in the notes, I took a bunch of other cards and threw it onto this card. if you would draw a card, instead put that card in your graveyard, and you can only play cards from your graveyard. Your hand does nothing at this point. And if a card would enter your graveyard from anywhere other than your library, you exile it. And at the beginning of your upkeep, if your graveyard has no cards in it, you lose the game. So, you want to be playing cards that force you to draw cards. That way you're milling yourself. So you can still lose by mill, too, because you can't... oh, no, you wouldn't. You would not lose the mill, because if you would draw, you would instead put it into your graveyard. But it's... the idea here being is that you get to play with your garbage. There were a lot of people that said this makes Dredge too good, and it would make Dredge very strong. I'm not going to lie to you about that. That's why I made it legendary. But still, like it's. I'm not going to lie. It's very strong. But again, I don't view this card as strong as a reason for not designing it. I think that's one of the weakest attacks or weakest criticism someone can make on a card, by saying, "Oh, it's just too strong," and it's like, well, you know what else is too strong? Uro, still got printed, So, you know what else is too strong? Embercleave, and it's still legal, and it's still destroying standard, So, I don't stand by the claim that things are too strong. Like, it just doesn't work. This is for the Vorthos and me. We talked about rats. It doesn't have a name because they never gave him a name in the story. This is a character from. It was just referenced in passing that there is a rat planeswalker on Kamigawa. If you ever read the Planeswalker trilogy of books, in the first book, there's Tezzeret references that there's a rat shaman that is a planeswalker, and he lives with the Nezumi on Kamigawa. That's all we ever hear about him, So that we just know that he exists, So I thought it would be fun to play with, And notice he doesn't make rats; he makes spirits because he's on Kamigawa. So, and he's a shaman. Right. So, I just thought it'd be fun to play with. Interesting thing here. I mean, obviously this is. I'm blanking on the name of it, but the famous 1/1 hasty black spirit that I can't think of, that was an extended deck for a long time. Not the one with Shadow. The one that with Shadow was based on. That you could bring him back from your graveyard. I can't even tell you what it was. Yes, that one. Yep. Okay. This is from Dead Space, if you guys have ever played the video game Dead Space. And you'll notice that I also do a lot of cross-platform stuff, where it's I bring stuff in from other games, which, hey, now that Magic Universe is a thing, we could see Dead Space show up in Magic. So, but this one really is, it's a nightmare. It's a Lycid, if you guys don't remember Lycids. It is a creature that can turn into an aura, essentially, and enchant another creature. Right. So what this does is it attaches to an opponent's creature, forces them to sacrifice it, and then if it's in your graveyard, it pops back up, and you can toss it on another creature. It just keeps coming back. The more you kill it, the more it comes back, and the only way to kill it permanently is to kill all of them all at once. But notice I added this just to make it really hard to beat it, which is you can have any number of necromorphs in your deck. But if you can, as long as one necromorph is in play, you can keep bringing them all back from your graveyard. So you've got to kill them all at once in order to destroy them. So here's one for you, Kevin. It's the Phantom Menace. So, this card is exceedingly busted. I'm not gonna lie that this is super broken, but only really in Commander. In if you were playing this in constructed 60 card constructed standard, where people are running multiples of a card, this card becomes slightly less good, because there's a good chance they're going to be able to name what you took. But in Commander in Singleton format, this becomes really, really good because. Basically, it says, you search their deck, you take a card out of their deck and exile it. And every upkeep, they're going to guess what that card is, and if they guess right, Phantom Menace dies. If they guess wrong, Phantom Menace gets bigger. So each turn there's a good chance Phantom Menace. What's that?
Crazy. Luckily, it has no evasion or any crazy.
Yeah, it has no evasion, so you can block it all day. But it's also a 2/5, so it can also block for you forever. It really is a Phantom Menace. This was just playing with keywords. I said I was shocked that this didn't show up in New Phyrexia, although when we go to Phyrexia again, it might. And that was just a creature that gives all your equipment living weapon. I'm surprised that, as much as they pushed living weapon in that set, this spell didn't show up. So I'm just like, yeah, this is just pointing out that, like, I'm surprised they missed this in their design, or maybe they did, or maybe they did make something like this and it just ended up on the cutting room floor or whatever.
I made a card very similar to that as well a long time ago.
Yeah,
but it shouldn't say equipment spells. It should say equipment you control have living.
Yeah. Here's my one for the coronavirus. You made yours. This is mine. This one throws out -1/-1 counter, -1/-1 counters on each creatures, and it creates coronavirus tokens. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And it puts sick counters on creatures, and creatures with sick counters can't untap. So, and of course, he takes no responsibility.
Paralyzed.
No. Yes, it's paralyzed. So, this one this was designed just for fun. There's some X-Men artwork there, but like I was more concerned about the ability here. This is where we talk about bottom-up design. I designed the card, and I was trying to find a picture that went with it. But yeah, whenever a creature deals damage to you, they very similar to No Mercy, where if you're going to take a shot at me, your creature's going to die. This is the same thing. If you're going to attack me, you're going to lose a card. I'll let you hit me, but you have to discard a card. This actually encourages me, the player of black, to let you hit me with your creatures because I want you to discard cards. It's very the same way that No Mercy works, where it's like with No Mercy, I want you to attack me. It's going to lower my life total, but it will kill your creature, so I'm okay with that.
Exactly.
I don't know what my thought behind this one was, so I'm gonna skip it. So here's my rat card. Rat Horde has power and toughness equal to the number of rats you control, and I base this bottom ability on Scoot Mob or Scoot Swarm. No mobs. Scoot Mob. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have control 5 or more rats, make more rats. That's why it's a horde. Don't let this thing get out of control. Here's another silverboard card, Slenderman. I don't know how you would ever enforce this one, but there it is. Whenever your opponent looks away from the battlefield, you get to exile a target creature they control. So this is more of like for it's great in a commander game when you have people being distracted from playing the game. They're looking at their phone or they're talking to someone else or whatever. Speaking of distractedness in commander games, here's Sanguis Bond. Again, this is based on Sanguis Bond. I like to play Sanguis Bond, and I like to mispronounce it every time I play it as Sanguis Bond. And it's every time you take a bite of food, target player loses 1 life. So as you're chowing down on your... What's that?
And now that can be updated to actually sacrificing the food token.
Yeah, there you go.
Now that food is a thing. So there you go. Here's one we built. I think this is from a card contest that I was actually in charge of on the board, where it was design a card that works with Magic Online, that plays with the mechanics of Magic Online. And this one was, in addition to cast this, you can pay X minutes off your time clock, and for each minute you pay, time demon costs 1 less. So you can get an 8/8 flying trample if you're willing to give up 8 minutes on your time clock for 3 mana, which is it's a rough call. Like giving up 8 minutes off your time clock, that could really suck.
especially after it comes into play and then they immediately swords the plowshare. So you're like, great, I just lost 8 minutes and my creature. Cool, fantastic. So yeah, this is what, again, look at one of these ones that has a really big downside, but for a really nice upside. But again, the risk is it has no protection. So if you put this in play and they blow it up, whoops, can't do anything about it. This one here is actually, I think nowadays this actually is a card. I'm trying to blank on the name of it, but whenever a player loses the game or another creature dies, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. And whenever it attacks, if it's your commander, if you're using this as your commander, it gets +10/+0. So it can really force your opponents to block it. But of course, at 8 mana, it's not very playable. This would fall into the category of unplayable commanders. but I would love to try to make it work.
It gets +10/+0. It doesn't say until end of turn.
Oh yeah, so it should say until end of turn. This is a poorly designed card.
Yeah.
Boo card.
Like, well,
actually, no. Actually, no. Yeah, if you could just do this too. You could just erase all this and just shoot. You could just change this to if. You can also type it like this: "Is your commander?" It gets +10.
+10.
Yeah.
So.
And then you.
That works too.
Yeah. So that actually works better. Oops. I hate when it does that. There. Now you've designed a card that makes people want to try to figure out how to use this as their commander. Even though, again, I will point out at this mana cost, this is a really bad idea. So I don't know how you're going to get 8 mana. And if by the time you're at 8 mana and you're dropping this thing, it's going to die, guaranteed. So you have to find some other way to get it into play that doesn't involve actually paying its mana cost. Here's another joke card. Well, it's hard to cheat it out when it's your commander. That's the problem.
Right.
So this is another joke card. He's a human scapegoat. This is actually a guy who was at the time, I don't know if he still is, back in 2014. He was the guy that was in charge of Magic Online, and he, if you guys remember version 4 which is the current version of MTGO, when it first launched, it didn't work at all. It was actually really terrible. The players hated it. They lost a lot of players when they switched from 3 to 4. Mostly because 4 launched in a completely broken form. It did not work at all. So this was just a joke to complain about. Like, and then anytime anyone asked about it, being like, "Hey, what's going on with version 4?" Worth just kept insisting that there was nothing wrong with version 4 and that people were just complaining to complain. And that actually absolutely was not true. Version 4 was a complete buggy mess that didn't work at all. It was actually version 4. I don't even think they've fixed this since then. But there was a nice way to, if you were in a tournament, you could time out your opponent by spamming your own buttons, and would force your opponent to time out instead of yourself. And so it was a great way to win tournaments. So yeah. And then of course this one, would be an example of a super pushed card. I'm not even gonna attempt to defend this mana cost of 4, but it basically says whenever a non-token creature an opponent dies, you may pay. They have to pay 4 to exile the card. If they don't, you get that creature. It's yours now. Which we have seen something similar to that right now. It is in Kaldheim. There's the 4/4 zombie dogger or Draugr, whatever his name is, that whenever a creature dies under your opponent's control, you get it, but you have to recast it. So, but this isn't even you don't have to recast it; it's just yours now. So, this card is ridiculous, but that's why it's called. It's a zombie nightmare. Like, you would not want to face down this card. So, actually, this one should probably be legendary, because now that I think about it, if you could stack it, that means you have to pay 4 each time this triggers. So, we better make that legendary. But yeah, so this is obviously, as you could tell, you look at how many blue cards I've designed versus how many black cards I designed. I love playing with black. Black is one of my favorite colors to design in, because black has so much room for design. There really is no bad way to design a black card. Like, unless, of course, it's something like, it has, something outside. Like, black destroys target enchantment. Oh, wait.
Right.
Black can do that now.
Not very well, and not very often.
Well, but not very often. But still, they could do it. So, but yeah, that's all.
Still can't touch artifacts.
Well, there's one black card that can actually just straight up destroy black artifacts. It's an enchantment, but
right,
it's an old card
too.
Old card called,
Gate to Phyrexia.
Yeah.
You might as well mention Death Grip and Withering Boon too, as to black's counterspells.
Yes. Yes, black doesn't have access to counterspells really. There's some color shifted ones from Planar Chaos, but
dash ups, yeah,
that are that are within black's flavor. It was counter target spell unless its controller pays 5 life, which is a pretty solid counter spell. As far as counter spells go, it's pretty solid. So, did someone just join our chat?
No.
Oh, that was weird. Okay. Well, that's all I've got for today. Is there anything else you want to add?
I think we covered everything. We covered, forced sacrifice, bird, all of black's real name, focus, and just being able to pretty much do just about anything it wants to do at press power. So next week we will talk about red.
Red, my other favorite color. So expect me to have a lot to say about red. Anyway, we'll see you guys next time.
Have a good one, guys. Next time. See you later.